Thank you very much, Marie-Noël, for this beautiful talk, and to all of you for being here. Personally, I think it was a great day. I will steal just 5 minutes of your time because we had a long lunch, so we want to go home. Usually, the role of stating conclusions is structurally boring and redundant. But in this case, the connections among the presentations were so clear that I ask you to allow me to perform a different language act with the time at my disposal. Instead of closing the discourse and offering one interpretation of what happened, let me try to open it further, as Umberto Eco would have liked. Do you know the New Yorker? It's an extremely high-quality newspaper focused on long readings. Reading one of their pieces takes forever, but it's often worth it. I recently discovered a very relevant article from the New Yorker called The Next Word. Please allow me to read just a few lines from it. It was as if a piece of software had translated the words of James Baldwin into Marlene Dietrich, which is to say, the words were dead or ceased to be. In the event, I'd been able to persuade GPT-2 to express the thoughts that I wanted it to express, although I didn't feel any more confident in my own knowledge of language or on my prowess at predicting what it might say. After a few minutes, I went on to the next page of the GPT-2's work, and the computer revealed a series of explanations about why words used in the Atlas Shrugged had apparently been chosen. Liking is true universal, the machine said. It applies to all individuals. Everybody is drawn to success, it said. Not only do they want what they want, but to the extent that they are successful, they also help others. The most interesting part of the text, however, I still quote, was the last line. You don't have to like it, but you should care. So this piece about what algorithms can do was written by an algorithm. All this was written by a bot. Now, the New Yorker machine writes better than most journalists, but it's conceived as an antagonist. Instead, Grammarly, an intelligent spell checker based on word embeddings, uses the same technology and has the same power, but it's thought as an helper. Otherwise, we will simply not use it. As Carl Gustav said, this dilemma resembles the distinction that was very popular in the 80s about artificial intelligence on the one hand and cybernetics or intelligence augmentée on the other. Artificial intelligence produces self-standing machines, while cybernetics aims to improve humans. In theory, this distinction is very easy to grasp. But the truth is that deep down, we think at ourselves as the only intelligent beings in the universe. So when intelligence is at stake, we begin to lose confidence in ourselves. But if we want to think at technology in a more modern way, we probably have to reframe our interaction with machines. I will elaborate a little bit on this. After all, Friedrich Nietzsche said that the last man, le dernier homme, is the one who accepts and wants his proper disappearance. The lazy capitalist man or woman is going to leave room to the Übermensch, but maybe this superman or superwoman is actually a cyborg, in part human and in part machine. As Carl Gustav said, the robot journalist is still a journalist, a human or half-human journalist. She's just better than her colleagues when it comes to selling her articles. But I think that there is more in automation than selling. Natalie said that there is a sharp difference between gatekeeping and marketing. And that, okay, the news are a product, but not an ordinary product. There are other values at stake. Are we sure that the machines cannot help us to reach these values? We can train them to help us to sell more, but why should not we be able to train them to help us to write better, or even help us to think better? Staying low profile, Facebook is a very good example of a sort of professional tool for journalists. What it actually does is to calculate and optimize proximity. Proximity is what sociologists say makes the news. If something is close to you, then it's important to you. Now it's easier to understand what is closer to you if I know who your friends are. And that's why we love the Facebook experience. Does this automatically kill journalism? Of course, we can choose to be lazy and let the machine do all the work, but some successful journalists manage to find a good strategy to find a large audience. Chiara Ferragni is an Italian influencer who is making a fortune just by posting shoes on Instagram. It's a simple idea, but a human had to think about it and have the knowledge and bon goût to know which shoes to post. What I mean is that if we think at algorithms as our friends instead as our enemies, we can possibly do a better job, and sometimes a much better job. The aim of Google was to put order into the internet. And this thing was considered impossible and a very human task before Google. But then they found a way, and today no human could ever replace algorithms doing this. Google is good at what it does, not just to sell what it does. Today we often think at algorithms, and especially at the big players, as if they were building a cage in which we have no freedom. But in a way it's the only cage we have, and it will be worse to sleep out there in the cold. Anna's research makes us think that there are worse cages, which are much more black boxes than the Silicon Valley. If we necessarily live in a cage, then the point is to improve our cage. And it's not easy to do this. As Marie-Noël said, sometimes bots do an amazing job, but we are still very much aggressive against automatic beings, just because we are very much afraid. Allow me to conclude on this. It's not the fault of technology if we do evil things with it. In China, they aim to their greater good, and apparently technology is working even too well for them. In the US and in Europe, it seems that we cannot agree anymore on what is our greater good, and we just aim to sell and buy more to obviate this. What I see is that we simply do not know where to go next, and we attack the algorithms almost as we also do in other contexts with migrants, for example. It's not their fault, but we do with what we have. But if this is true, then what we really need is a new philosophy, or at least some bits of it. Who knows, maybe something we are still not ready to think about right now, something inactual in the sense given to this term by Friedrich Nietzsche, is that we need computers to imagine our future and do philosophy. After all, the formalization of logics by George Boole, has been at the root of computer science. And the Stoics said a long time ago that logics is just the means to reach ethics, to understand together what is the greater good. Maybe, who knows, the automation of the news will help us, in a way or another, to reach a public space which is closer to what was imagined by Habermas or Perelman. But to know this, we need to learn how to use machines to think better. Or at least, as the GPT-2 algorithm wrote for The New Yorker, you don't have to like it, but you should care. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup Dario pour ta conclusion un peu provocante, mais c'est bien parce que ça va nous faire penser. Je vous remercie tous d'être venus aujourd'hui. Merci beaucoup à nos intervenants. Thank you very much for our guest from Finland. Et maintenant, j'espère qu'on aura l'occasion de renouveler ce type d'opération, avec peut-être davantage de mélange et peut-être davantage d'intervention d'informaticiens, Christophe, pour aller jusqu'au bout de la logique. Voilà, merci beaucoup, bonne soirée à tous.